What's up, guys? I hope you're having a great day. We're out here in nature today enjoying this gorgeous weather here in Toronto, and I just wanted to film outside today, honestly, because I have been cooped up in my apartment long enough. And as you might have noticed, I did not post last week, and that is just because I've been having some stuff kind of happen in my personal life that kind of got me down, and I just didn't really feel like filming anything. And as I've always stated before, I only want to post content that, you know, is going to be helpful to people and inspiring and on a more positive note, so I don't feel like anybody needs to see me, you know, crying in my bed all day eating buckets of coconut ice cream, you know, not very helpful. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of wait until I was feeling better before I kind of posted again. And I'm happy to say that I am feeling much better now, and I dealt with, you know, things as well as I could, and I'm kind of starting a new slate, feeling good about everything and feeling ready to move forward. And so I thought, what better way to do that than to do a video on how I get myself feeling better when sometimes life throws you a curveball and, you know, sometimes life knocks you down, but you got to get back up. So these are just the things that personally make me feel better. I know they might obviously be different for every person, but I thought I would just like throw some ideas out there, so if they're helpful, great. If not, interpret in whatever way you need, but let's just jump straight into it. So to start things off, I will say that when something unexpected happens or when you are faced with a really difficult situation, try your best to get some perspective on it. And what do I mean by that? The Dalai Lama actually did something in a talk that I was watching earlier this week where he said, I'm gonna attempt to do this, he's like, look at your problem, your finger is your problem. It's not wanting to focus, but anyways, you know, it's like so close, it's so apparent, you can't see anything else because your problem is so overwhelming and so big because you're focusing on it. But if you keep putting it back, pulling it back, pulling it back, pulling it back, and you know, you kind of take in the whole kind of big picture of what's actually happening in the situation, not your immediate sort of feelings and reactions, more likely than not, it's really not that big of a deal, because we can all attest to the fact that how many times have we had like something happen where like, oh my god, like it's the end of the world, we're gonna be really dramatic here for a minute, and you know, it's all encompassing, and then you know, you give it a couple weeks and you're like, oh okay, it wasn't that big of a deal, you know, life goes on. You know, we're not gonna remember some of these things like 10 years later that we're just like completely cringing about now. So I really try and do that. I know sometimes it's hard, you know, being in the moment, to just like step away and kind of give the situation a third person perspective, and you know, sometimes try and see the situation, you know, from the other person's point of view and why they might be feeling that way, and you know, try and have as much of a non-reactive sort of reaction right to begin with, because sometimes, you know, when we are in a fight or flight sort of mode where like somebody says something that really hurts us, and you know, we fire back with more anger or completely, you know, explode with sadness or whatever it is, you know, if we would have sat on this sort of decision for, you know, a couple days and kind of let it all process, we probably wouldn't react the same way. And sometimes, you know, you can have even more negative consequences come from reacting out of those ways. So sometimes I find it nice to just like take a step back, even if it's for like 5-10 seconds, and just like take a couple breaths and you know, try and look at the situation from a different perspective. But I mean, even if you did react, even if you said things you didn't mean, and now it's like this whole, you know, mess of a situation, the other thing that I will say about these kind of trying, difficult times is that honestly, it's going to make you so much stronger. You are going to, you know, come out of this, if you choose to, with some new knowledge and just have a, you know, stronger sort of backbone to dealing with whatever comes your way. There was actually a moment where I was kind of going through, you know, all the things that happened this week, and I'm like crying and bawling and having all these like negative things kind of go through me, and I just all of a sudden had this like moment of clarity where I was like, you know what, this really fucking hurts right now and this really sucks, but it is for the best, and I'm going to be so much stronger because of it. you know, I'm going to take whatever kind of knowledge I can out of this situation and move forward with that, and you know, this temporary sort of feeling of sadness and anger or whatever, it's going to pass and I'm going to be fine. I've been fine so many times before. I've gone through way harder and shittier things before, and I'm still here and I'm doing great, and it's because of those experiences that I had that were really difficult that I do feel like I'm, you know, prepared to take on whatever comes my way. So whatever negative, you know, situation you're having, you can always flip it and try and find a positive. The other thing I like to do is, number one, depending on the situation, either have some alone time, because it's incredible actually the clarity and, you know, confidence that can come with making decisions for yourself and just taking, you know, some much needed time for yourself to just process everything, do whatever you want to do, have some me time, have some, you know, indulgence time, and, you know, just take care of yourself. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's great to have amazing people around who do care about you and can help you, you know, get over a difficult situation, but I think there has to be an element of independence where you know that no matter what happens, you know, you don't need anyone to lean on, and, you know, you can handle whatever comes your way yourself. Really take a look at what's going on inside, why you feel the way you feel, and, you know, what it is you want now moving forward. Because sometimes I feel like we get so hung up on, you know, the things that, you know, are gone, or that we missed out on, or that we messed up, all these negative sort of things that aren't going to really help us move forward, instead of just asking ourselves, okay, well, you know, this is the circumstances that we have now, what's the next step, what's, you know, what's going to make me feel better, how can I move forward, and what do I actually want? And, you know, nobody can really answer that for you other than yourself. So I think it's really beneficial to take some time for yourself and, you know, just be your own therapist for a couple minutes. Speaking of therapy, I find there are very many very beneficial and helpful therapies out there that are not prescribed by your local psychiatrist, and that can be anything that makes you feel inspired and happy to be alive. So whether your, you know, passion or hobby or whatever it is, something that brings you joy is, let's say, music or movies or dancing, or for me sometimes it's window shopping. Like, honestly, like, it's crazy sometimes the things that just, you know, kind of calm down our stress level and make us feel better. Ever since I was a little kid, and whenever I would feel bad, me and my dad kind of had this tradition where he would be like, he knew I wasn't always sick, I just didn't feel like going to school, and he would be like, okay, well, what would make you feel better? Why don't we go to, you know, Prince Albert, and why don't we just go walk around the mall and, you know, go get some DQ or whatever, and, you know, just have a day of us bonding. So ever since, the one thing that will make me feel better, and, you know, sure, it sounds superficial, but honestly it's just like the act of going through the motions of walking around the mall that actually brings me like joy and makes me feel better and makes me more calm. And like, I don't even have to buy anything, I just like to be in a mall when it's not busy, just walking around with a coffee, and I'll feel better. And so yeah, that works for me sometimes, or sometimes just playing my favorite music or watching my favorite film, just whatever, you know, you feel like doing in that moment, you know, feel like you have the freedom to do it and just like reap in the benefits. And my next tip is probably the most important, arguably so, and that is that we are what we eat. And I know I talk a lot about this on my channel, and that is because I do feel so passionate about it, is that if you are looking to treat any kind of illness, whether it's mental, physical, whatever, you should be taking into the account of what it is you are eating. Because with myself included, there have been so many people who have said that as soon as I switched to a plant-based diet, a lot of my mental problems were alleviated. You know, things that used to really upset me emotionally, you know, didn't seem to hit as hard. I just feel freer, I just feel happier, I just feel better all the time, and I can deal with whatever life throws at me so much better. And like I said, myself included, I saw a complete 180 of how I felt emotionally once I switched to a much more plant-based vegan diet. And speaking of consuming, I think people greatly underestimate what we consume other than food in our everyday lives. So consuming can be anything from, like, you know, what you watch on television, you know, what you choose to do with your spare time, who you hang around with, probably the most important. I think we greatly underestimate just how much, you know, who we choose to surround ourselves with has as an impact on, you know, our complete selves once again. and you know, we think that, oh yeah, you know, like by me just watching, you know, like frickin' Donald Trump just giving all these like hate speeches, or you know, watching whatever else that's just talking about, you know, just how dangerous of a place, you know, this world is, and that you should always be scared and you should always be sad because there's just so much tragedy in the world. And like, yes, those things are true, I'm not negating it, and it's important to bring awareness to it, but at the same time, if that's the constant state that you're living in, if you're always thinking about, you know, things that, you know, leave you scared and depressed and sad, all this, what is that breeding more of? It's breeding the same. You know, you're not actually solving the problem if you're just gonna sit in those emotions and, you know, not have an action that comes out of it. So I like to just surround myself with much more positive people, people who do believe, you know, in actually taking action against things that they do think are unjust, and even in their own lives, right? It's like, if I feel like I'm, you know, not in a good place, okay, well, I'm going to do something about it. I'm not just going to sit in it. I'm not just going to accept it. I'm not going to be a victim. One particular circumstances for me personally was when I was diagnosed with a autoimmune disease that the doctors told me there was no cure for. You know, this is something you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. So, you know, get comfortable, get used to it. And I was like, no. Absolutely not. You know, I am not going to take the fact that just because you don't know, you know, what this is, or, you know, how to deal with it exactly, and, you know, aren't giving me any, you know, proactive sort of options, I'm not going to take that as a final answer. I'm not just going to live with this kind of suffering. You know, I'm going to try different things that, you know, make sense and that are going to help my body, you know, in the long run in general, and, you know, see if something can work. And thankfully it did. And I went back to these same doctors, you know, a year or two later for my annual checkup, and they were like, oh my god, like, how is this not an issue for you? Like, what did you do? Like, oh, it must have just like gone away on its own. I'm like, no, I had dealt with this for 5 years, you know, doing what you guys have said, nothing. And as soon as I, you know, tried something else, tried something different that made, you know, logical sense to me, lo and behold, I'm doing so much better. So I'm a big believer in not making yourself a victim, and always trying to look at situations in a proactive sort of attitude. And, you know, even if it is something that, you know, is just, you know, not the best, but that you have to, you know, work with and deal with, fine, but just have the attitude that, you know, this is something that can get better, and I'm going to do my best to make it better. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope it inspired you even a little bit to maybe look at your problems in a different light, and realize that you do have so much power and so much control. Even just by the fact of looking at them differently is going to make a huge impact. So I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I hope that, you know that you are never alone, and that we are all one, and that we're all going through hard times sometimes. But if you kind of look at the bigger picture, things aren't so bad. They're pretty great. We're pretty fucking lucky. So let's make the most of it, and let's have an absolutely beautiful day. And until I see you guys next time, keep being your own kind of beautiful, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.